have dated 4 boyfriends in total. The first one was a rich young master. I chased after him for 2 years and we dated for 3 months. When we broke up, he looked down at me arrogantly and said, "Victoria, I was just playing with you." The second boyfriend was a university professor. I was the one who pursued him as well, and we dated for a year. When we broke up, he smiled gently and said, "Victoria, I don't have time to wait for you to grow up." The third boyfriend was a big movie star. He was the one who pursued me, not the other way around. When we broke up, he mocked me. "A bastard really is disgusting. You wiggle a finger and you throw yourself at me." Later, when I publicly announced my marriage to my fourth boyfriend, all of them appeared one by one. Chapter 1. Life is long and I wish to spend it slowly with you. I posted my marriage announcement on Moments, attaching a photo of the marriage certificate between Luis and me. Friends who knew me well all sent their blessings. Among the many comments, I saw one very discordant message. "Are you serious?" I took a look. Turns out it was from Hudson. Hudson, my first boyfriend, my first love technically, though the breakup had been so humiliating that he never held any white moonlight nostalgia in my heart. With his arrogant young master personality, he should have deleted me long ago. Why did he still keep my contact? Maybe he thought it didn't matter anymore, so he just left it there. I replied one by one to all the congratulatory messages, skipping Hudson's ambiguous comment. Then I sent Luis a voice message. "Buy me a small blueberry cake on your way back." Just after sending it, I received a message from Pablo. I was stunned. Why would Pablo message me? Yuri getting married. My feelings were complicated. When I was with Pablo, I had imagined our future more than once. I met Pablo in university. He was a PhD senior, 6 years older than me, gentle, considerate, and polite. When we broke up, he stayed calm. Even though I cried and begged him not to leave, he still gently wiped my tears, smiling as he said, "Victoria, you're too immature. I don't have time to wait for you to grow up." That was Pablo, always disciplined and proper. Even when I broke down, he remained composed. When he pointed out my flaws, he spoke as if giving an academic presentation, which caused me endless self-doubt afterward. But those painful days have passed. I glanced at the marriage certificate beside me. I have found where I belong. Yes, we already registered. On his end, the typing indicator kept showing. After a long time, he finally sent, "Congratulations on your marriage. Thank you, Senior. Turns out the intense love and hate I once felt for Pablo have faded over time. I exited the chat and opened TikTok only to see that the top trending news was actor David turning dark-faced during a live stream. The comments were full of "Brother just saw something. Why did his expression change so fast?" I raised an eyebrow. This brat, after all these years, still so unable to hide his emotions. But with his background and status, he never had to pretend. David, my third boyfriend. Although he said very cruel things when we broke up, they didn't affect me much. On the very first day we dated, I knew we wouldn't last. I knew he didn't have good intentions, but I was too lonely then. I just wanted company, so when he pursued me, I agreed. I was a little curious what David had seen. Just then the doorbell rang. Luis walked in carrying a small cake. Looking at the tall man before me, it was hard to imagine that we would end up together. Chapter 2. My encounter with Luis was completely accidental. At that time I had just broken up with David. Although I had long known such a day would come, I'm a very emotional person, and my heart still felt heavy. So I went on a trip to Xinjiang, and that was where I met Luis. Luis was a lawyer, and I had actually met him once before. When my nominal father died, everyone was notified to return for the division of his estate. Even though I was an illegitimate child, the civil code still protected my rights, and Luis was the lawyer in charge. I received 3 million yuan and an apartment. For a family as wealthy and influential as ours, that amount was nothing, clearly arranged by my so-called older brother and older sister to placate me. The other illegitimate children got far more than I did. I understood why they hated me, but none of it mattered. That money was enough for me to live a simple life. Luis asked me professionally whether I needed legal assistance. I told him I didn't. After that we never saw each other again. I didn't expect we would meet again in the picturesque beauty of Xinjiang. Luis said that his wallet and ID had been stolen, and I was the only person he knew there. He asked if he could travel with me. I figured I was just out having fun anyway, and as a woman traveling alone I indeed wasn't very safe, so I agreed. Luis usually looked cold and aloof, but he was surprisingly attentive. He knew so much about everything. No matter what topic I brought up, he could connect instantly. Traveling with him was genuinely joyful. He taught me how to ride a horse. On the vast grasslands of Xinjiang, he took me galloping across the earth, the whole world unfolding beneath us. In that moment, I felt as if I had finally let go of the misfortune and sorrow of the past 20-some years of my life. I was a comic artist, and I turned my Xinjiang experiences into a comic. Overnight it went viral across the entire internet. That success in my career helped me forget the bitterness of my romantic failures. After returning to Shanghai, I became closer with Luis. We talked about everything, north and south, past and present. Sometimes I was amazed at how aligned our thoughts were. Our tacit understanding felt like we had known each other for years. We often arranged trips together. One night in Lijiang ancient town, both Luis and I had a little to drink. The moon in the sky was bright. I laughed and asked Luis, "Do you like me?" Luis gave a faint smile. "You noticed?" "I'm not totally sure, but it feels like you probably do." "No need to be unsure. I like you. I've liked you for a long time." Luis's eyes were bright like stars. After he said those words, he just looked at me quietly. Later Luis told me he had been really nervous at that moment. He was afraid I would reject him. I suddenly burst out laughing. "I like you too." Being together with Luis felt completely natural, as if we were destined. After we became a couple, Luis took me to do many things I had never dared to try before. He took me to Antarctica to see penguins, to Australia to witness a volcanic eruption, and on a storm-tossed cruise where we kissed passionately in the wind. "Victoria, life burns bright. I hope you always shine." After meeting Luis, much of my emptiness and loneliness was filled. So when he proposed, I agreed without hesitation. Chapter 3. Grandfather was celebrating his 90th birthday, and all of us younger generation were required to return for the banquet. I didn't want to go with every cell of my body, but grandfather cared most about his reputation. If I dared embarrass him in public, he would probably throw me out of Shanghai. Besides, back then when my siblings wanted to destroy me, he was the only one who stepped in to stop them. So even though I knew this banquet would disgust me so much I wouldn't be able to eat, I still had to go. Fortunately, Luis would be accompanying me. When my siblings saw me, their eyes were full of unfiltered hatred, as if they were looking at garbage. There were 4 illegitimate children in total, but I was the one they hated the most because my mother had been very cunning. She had almost become the official wife. I was brought home when I was 12. They gave me a privileged life, but that house was the place I hated the most. Amelia had disliked me since we were young. She often played petty tricks behind the scenes, locking me in the yard on rainy days, cutting power to my room in summer, and sealing the windows, inciting classmates to bully me at school. Among everyone in that house, Amelia was the one I hated the most. When I later discovered that Amelia liked Hudson, I suddenly thought of a way to take revenge. I would seduce Hudson and make Amelia, that arrogant princess, taste what it was like to lose something she wanted. I humbled myself around Hudson for 2 years. Everyone said I was as cheap as my mother, seducing men at such a young age. I didn't care, because at that time my hatred for Amelia was stronger than anything. Eventually I succeeded and got together with Hudson. I still remembered the furious flame-spitting look in Amelia's eyes when I appeared holding Hudson's hand. "Victoria, you really are like a haunting ghost," Amelia said darkly. The more miserable she was, the happier I felt. I smiled brightly. "Thanks to all of you, I'm living well in Shanghai." Amelia glanced at Luis beside me and let out a mocking laugh. "Where did you pick up this stray man?" "Miss Amelia, long time no see." "I'm Victoria's husband, Luis," Luis said calmly before I could respond. The moment Amelia heard Luis, the disdain in her eyes vanished. Luis came from a prestigious family of legal scholars, and his grandfather had even participated in legislative work. "Miss Amelia, your words offended Victoria and insulted me as well." "I must ask you to apologize," Luis said gently but with overwhelming pressure. Amelia was so angry her face turned red. She stiffened her neck, unwilling to apologize. I noticed more and more people turning to look at us. Leo said in a deep voice, "Amelia, apologize to them." Although unwilling, Amelia still reluctantly apologized. Sigh, Amelia was far more cowardly now than she had been as a child. Just as I sighed to myself, I noticed someone staring at me. Following the gaze, I discovered it was Hudson. Of course, given our family's connection, Hudson would definitely attend this event. After years apart, Hudson had grown more mature. His entire presence exuded the aura of a domineering CEO. I flashed him a fake smile. I only wanted to disgust him a little. Unexpectedly, his expression changed drastically. The noisy, suffocating banquet made it hard for me to breathe, so I went to the back garden to get some air. Just as I was about to return to find Louise Hudson suddenly appeared. What did that smile you gave me just now mean? I was honestly annoyed. Hudson always carried himself as if he were above everyone, full of young master syndrome. Back then, in order to make him fall for me, I had spent so much energy. Although my motives were impure at first, people develop feelings. Hudson helped me several times, and for someone who was alone and helpless, his help was like a timely snowfall in winter. So eventually, I genuinely fell for him. But we only dated for 3 months. When we broke up, he trampled my dignity into the ground and belittled me like I was worthless. I casually brushed him off. Nothing. Just saying hello after so many years. He fell silent for a moment. When he spoke again, maybe it was my imagination, his voice seemed strangely dry. You really got married? Otherwise, you think it's a fake marriage? My tone was mocking. After all, when we broke up, he had said we were just pretending to play around. You actually took it seriously. Luis comes from a political family. There's no way he'd really want a bastard like you, Victoria. Don't fool yourself. You'd better break up with him early. He said it with that annoying, it's for your own good attitude, full of contempt for my background. A voice came from behind. Mr. Hudson enjoys sticking his nose into other people's relationships, it seems. Whatever happens between Victoria and me is none of your concern. My family likes her very much. A person's birth isn't something they can choose. None of it should be a shackle for Victoria. Luis came over and whispered to me, "Where did you go? I've been looking for you." He didn't realize that our intimate posture completely triggered Hudson. Hudson laughed coldly. "Victoria, you think Luis is a good man?" I glanced at him strangely. Hudson had lived abroad for years. When did he learn to slander people so viciously? If he's not, then what about you? Hudson's chest heaved with anger. I didn't notice that behind me Luis was looking at him with a victorious smirk. Chapter 4. After the banquet, Hudson sent me a WeChat message. "Victoria, what I said that day wasn't meant to mock you. I just wanted to remind you. Hey. No need to worry about me. My husband and I get along perfectly fine. Not everyone looks down on me the way you people do. Victoria, I've never looked down on you. It was a voice message. From Hudson's tone, I could even hear a hint of anxiety. It doesn't matter anymore. I no longer need your respect. Do you still hate me for breaking up with you? But you were the one who lied to me first. I had hated Hudson briefly, but the past had long faded away. My feelings for him, love and hate, were gone. I don't hate you anymore. If you mind that I lied to you back, then I'll apologize now. I drew a clear professional boundary with Hudson. After that message, he didn't reply again. I didn't know why Hudson was suddenly concerned about my life. But it didn't matter. 10 years had passed. I had truly forgotten him. The Hudson whom I once saw as the only light in my chaotic life had disappeared the moment he walked out of Hongqiao Airport. Half a month later, my alma mater held its 50th anniversary celebration and invited alumni to return. Only then did I realize that Luis had graduated from the same university as me, just 3 years earlier. I joked with Luis, saying that if I had entered university earlier, we might have met sooner. He didn't seem happy. Instead, he asked sarcastically, "You were so obsessed with your senior back then, would you even have noticed me?" The jealousy practically filled the whole sky. I had told Luis about my dating history, so he knew about Pablo. That night in bed, he insisted that I call him senior. At first, I stubbornly refused. But he kept tormenting me in various ways until I couldn't take it anymore, and weekly called him senior several times. For some reason that only made him worse. The next day, I almost couldn't get out of bed to attend the anniversary. I was a little angry. All the way there, Luis kept fussing over me. My alma mater, Beijing University, was lively and bustling today. Students, alumni, and faculty were everywhere. We walked around the campus, and without realizing it, I ended up at the pavilion I used to love visiting during my university years. Maybe because it was a remote spot, there wasn't anyone else around. Only when I stepped in did I realize someone was already sitting inside, Pablo. To be honest, in that instant, I wanted to turn around and leave. But Pablo called out to me. "Victoria, long time no see." His voice was still the same, warm, gentle, comforting like a spring breeze. I steadied myself and smiled naturally. "Pablo, long time no see." Pablo's gaze swept over Luis and me holding hands. I took the initiative to introduce this as my husband Luis. Luis nodded politely at Pablo. "Since you're here, we won't disturb you." As I spoke, I tried to pull Luis away. "But Pablo," said Victoria, "do you remember? This was the place you loved bringing me to. I waited here on purpose to see you." My steps faltered and countless memories surged through my mind. Chapter 5. With Pablo, I truly thought about spending my whole life with him, growing old together. Our breakup came without any warning. Not long before, he had still been telling me trivial things like how the flowers on campus were blooming beautifully. But after just 1 week without seeing each other, he brought up breaking up right after a dinner. I still remember how my eyes widened in disbelief as I asked him why. He said I was childish and being with me exhausted him. I told him I would change. I cried and begged him not to break up, yet he wiped my tears while saying the cruelest words. "I can't wait. Time is too expensive." I didn't agree to break up. I clung to him for 2 months. In the end, he preferred going to Africa for academic research rather than see me again. In my life, if there's something unforgettable, Pablo's resolute back when he left was definitely one of them. So what did Pablo mean now? Pretending to be affectionate? Or simply trying to disgust me? "What do you mean? Can I talk to you alone?" Even when faced with my impatience, he still looked gentle. I used to love how calm and unshakable he was, but now Pablo seemed lifeless. "There's nothing for us to talk about." I threw the words at him and prepared to leave with Luis. "Victoria, I didn't want to break up back then." He suddenly said this to me. "After we got together, I began receiving international text messages urging me to break up with you. At first I didn't care, but later they became more frequent. He started threatening me. Around that time I was about to graduate. My advisor told me my thesis had been held back and asked if I had offended someone. After thinking for a long time, I finally connected it to the messages. No wonder during that period, although Pablo looked calm on the surface, I often caught glimpses of irritation in his eyes when he checked his phone. You must have guessed, it was Hudson. He threatened me. I didn't want to give in, but I couldn't afford to gamble away years of hard work. "So I broke up with you." Pablo's voice even choked slightly as said this. "Why did Hudson do that? Was it because he couldn't accept losing?" "The past doesn't need to be brought up again, Pablo. It's all over now." "It's not over. If it weren't for Hudson, the one standing beside you now should be me." Pablo suddenly sounded emotional. "Professor, even without Hudson, you and Victoria wouldn't have lasted. Your personalities don't match. Forcing yourselves together would only hurt you both." Luis stepped in. Pablo let out a cold laugh. "How would you know? Victoria and I loved each other deeply back then. If I hadn't stepped aside, there'd be no place for you. I remember the professor's father is a leading expert in electrical engineering. Did it not occur to you to ask your father for help? You didn't want to embarrass yourself in front of him, so you gave up on Victoria." Luis stated the truth calmly. Pablo instantly deflated like a rooster that had just lost a fight. "Since you made your decision back then, don't regret it now." Leaving those words, Luis took my hand and walked away. Pablo stood there alone. I suddenly remembered the younger versions of Pablo and me, talking here about life and dreams, promising that when we grew old we would come back and visit this place again. But the most beautiful vows eventually became bubbles blown away by the wind. On the way back, I couldn't help asking Luis, if it had been you back then, would you have given up on me? Pablo is too weak. He wanted to prove himself to his father, which is why he chose that path. I wouldn't. Nothing is more important than you to me. Besides, Hudson couldn't possibly interfere with a PhD thesis. He was only bluffing. Indeed, although his family was powerful, they weren't omnipotent, especially since Hudson was abroad at the time. Then what do you think Hudson wants? Can't stand to see me happy? Luis looked at me with a complicated expression. Maybe he's unwilling to accept it. Unwilling? The young master had his first relationship ruined by an illegitimate daughter. Was he angry because he was the one being played? Then aren't you going to ask what I think about Pablo? No need. Your heart belongs to me. I can feel it. Luis smiled faintly. You're confident. You're the one who gave me that confidence. He leaned over and kissed my forehead. The scattered sunlight fell across our faces. Everything felt beautiful. Chapter 6. When we got home we saw a fully armed, heavily covered man standing at the door. When he saw Luis and me arrive his muffled voice came from behind his mask. "Victoria, sis." It was David. "What are you doing here? What if the paparazzi catch you? I wanted to see you." David was as always self-willed, acting only on his own impulses, never considering anyone else's feelings. "Call your manager to pick you up right now. I don't want to be on the front page with you tomorrow." He didn't move. I opened the door and he squeezed inside. I originally didn't want to let him enter, but there were people passing by in the hallway. I was afraid he'd be recognized, so I had no choice but to let him in. "Why can he go in?" David pointed at Luis. I rolled my eyes. "He's my husband. If he doesn't come in, who should?" A flash of panic crossed David's face. "You really got married?" Why were they all obsessed with asking this stupid question? Luis, acting like the proper host, poured David a glass of water. David glared at him several times. "If your eyes have a problem, go get them checked," I said impatiently. If Hudson was a spoiled young master, then David was a reckless child, immature, impulsive, and completely oblivious to consequences. David looked aggrieved and seemed like he was about to explode, but for some reason he forced himself to hold it in. "Victoria. I came to apologize. For what I said back then. Those hurtful things. Victoria, I'm sorry." "What things?" "The part where he said bastards were disgusting. To be honest, I hadn't taken it to heart. David nearly died because of an illegitimate child in his family when he was young, so it made sense that he hated them. In my eyes, David was just a rebellious teenager who never grew up. Why would I bother arguing with a child?" I generously said, "It's fine." David's eyes lit up. "So you forgive me?" I nodded perfunctorily, already wondering when his manager would arrive to take him away. "Then can you not get married?" I stared at him like he was an idiot. What did forgiving him have to do with whether I got married? He must have noticed the shock in my eyes. David, who was terrible at reading the room, realized something was wrong. I thought he might try to fix it. But what he said next was even more absurd. "You can still get married, but can you try an open marriage? I want to be with you." Luis, who had been quiet, immediately cut him off. "Sir, interfering in someone's marriage is illegal." Honestly, I was furious. What did David take me for? And what did he take himself for? "David, are you out of your mind? After so many years in the entertainment industry, is this all you learned? Get out before I lose my temper. I don't want to see you." David's face flushed bright red. "Victoria, why is it that after we broke up you found someone new so quickly? Did you never love me? Is that why you walked away without hesitation? You were the one who wanted to break up. Luis and I got together in the 3rd year after we separated. You couldn't tell I was just acting out of anger back then? No. You insulted me so viciously. I'm not pathetic enough to cling to you afterward, am I?" I replied coldly. David had been spoiled since childhood, used to being willful and disregarding others' feelings, with a mouth both harsh and stubborn. "Do you know who told me about your background?" "It was Hudson. He's the one who broke us apart." Hudson again. My head hurt. "David, people who truly love each other don't break up that easily." The moment I said this, David visibly collapsed like all the air had been knocked out of him. A knock came at the door. His manager had arrived. Before leaving, David asked if I would forget him. "There are posters of you everywhere. How could I forget you?" I knew what he really wanted to ask was whether I'd forget what we once had. I had already begun to forget. After all, a person with so many flaws, once you stop loving them, those flaws fade first. Chapter 7. I was very annoyed because I realized Hudson had once tried to control me. Both of my relationships that ended without resolution had his shadow in them. I didn't know what Hudson was trying to do. "Did he come to find you?" Luis nodded. Luis said that during the later part of our Xinjiang trip Hudson had come to him. Later, Hudson must have had more important business overseas, so he was busy and quiet for a while. I asked what Hudson said. Luis said it didn't matter. Nothing he said could shake my heart that had already fallen for Luis. Luis was fluent in romance. His sweet talk always overwhelmed me. With Luis distracting me, I soon forgot about Hudson. Luis said his family wanted to have a lively wedding celebration. I agreed. His family treated me very well and I loved the warmth of his home. But before that I found out I was pregnant. Sitting on a bench in the hospital, I couldn't believe it. I actually had a baby now. Luis on the phone was overjoyed. He told me to stay at the hospital and not move, that he was coming to get me. Just as I was subconsciously touching my lower abdomen, a shadow fell over me. Thinking it was Luis, I looked up in surprise, only to see Hudson. He saw the ultrasound picture in my hand. His voice was dry as he asked, "You're pregnant?" I didn't know why, but after learning he had interfered in my relationships, I felt fear instead of just dislike. I tightened my grip on the ultrasound picture and said nothing. Hudson suddenly began laughing inexplicably. After laughing enough, he said, "You're pregnant with Luis's child? You actually got pregnant with his child?" After everything I did, in the end it all benefited him. Everything in my instincts told me Hudson was not normal right now. "Victoria, do you even have a heart? How can you go from one relationship to another so easily? What do you take me for?" The whole scene felt bizarre. Hudson and I had been broken up for 10 years. If not for Pablo and David's incidents, I wouldn't even have known Hudson still followed my life. I've always been someone who lives in the present, neither clinging to the past nor obsessing about the future. As for Hudson, I had let him go long, long ago. "Hudson, we broke up 10 years ago, not 10 days. Do you expect me to stay faithful to you forever? You were the one who broke up with me. You said you were only playing around." I looked Hudson in the eye and replied clearly. "And why did you lie to me? You only pursued me to get revenge on Amelia. Did you ever love me? You didn't feel it?" Hudson froze for a moment. I suddenly felt it was ridiculous. How could Hudson not feel it? He was my first love. I gave him all my passion. Even though it only lasted 3 months, I truly loved him. Hudson was an extremely proud person. He couldn't tolerate deception. For him, a relationship that started with an impure intention could never have a good ending. "Hudson, 10 years have passed. We should both let go. I don't want to know why you meddled in my relationships, and I don't want to keep dwelling on whose fault it was. I'm living well now. Don't disturb me anymore." But Hudson suddenly began laughing hysterically. I became frightened. Luckily, Luis arrived at that moment. He glanced at Hudson with obvious disgust and shielded me as we walked away. Hudson simply stared from the side without saying anything. "Victoria, why didn't you come to Hongqiao Airport back then? I waited for you all night." Hudson's words came out of nowhere. After everything that happened in the hospital today, I was exhausted physically and mentally. I didn't respond and left with Luis. Chapter 8. Because of the pregnancy, the wedding was moved up. I was trying on dresses at the bridal shop when I suddenly craved blueberry cake, so I told Luis to go buy some for me. I tried several wedding gowns. They all looked beautiful. I was starting to look forward to our wedding. I had never received blessings from so many people before. I touched my belly and quietly told myself that I would be a good mother, that my child would grow up in sweetness, never experiencing the grievances I suffered as a child. At that moment, the door pushed open. In the mirror, I saw Hudson walking in. The smile on my face disappeared instantly. "You followed me here?" Hudson smiled. "My family owns this store." I didn't understand how after our last unhappy encounter Hudson could still act like nothing had happened. "You look beautiful in a wedding dress." When I was in the US, one of my senior classmates studied fashion design. She designed a beautiful wedding dress. I asked her to make one for me and she agreed. I was very happy. I imagined for a long time what you would look like in a wedding gown, but then you got together with Pablo. "What are you saying these things for? It doesn't matter anymore." He laughed self-mockingly. "Yes, you're right. It doesn't matter anymore. I tried for so long, but in the end you still married someone else, and even got pregnant with his child. What you did isn't called trying." I replied expressionlessly. Hudson ignored my words and continued. "Luis came to warn me not to come see you again. Actually, I've known Luis for a long time. We were friends once. This is the first time I've ever seen him so angry. I can tell. He loves you very much." I know. My impatience was becoming more obvious. I didn't understand why Hudson had to say all this now. "You still haven't answered my question that day." "What question?" "The one about Hongqiao Airport. I mean the day I flew to the US. I sent you a message saying I was waiting for you at Hongqiao Airport. If you were willing to come, I would take you to America with me." I froze. I never received that message. For someone as proud as Hudson, taking such a step was already remarkable. He said he waited for me all night. What was he thinking that night? Seeing my confusion, Hudson continued. You didn't get the message, did you? When you didn't answer me at the hospital the other day, I already knew. I was locked up by Amelia. After Hudson and I broke up, Amelia lost all restraint. She locked me in the attic and almost killed me. Grandfather was the one who saved me. When I was released, Hudson had already left. We never had a final goodbye. Hudson stayed silent for a long time. When he looked up again, I noticed a faint wetness in his eyes. If you had received the message, would you have come for me? Would I have? Maybe not. Would the timid, cowardly 18-year-old Victoria really have flown to an unfamiliar country with him? My silence told Hudson my answer. Victoria, we weren't supposed to miss each other. What do you mean, weren't supposed to? You had countless chances to tell me how you felt in America. I had countless chances to go looking for you. But your pride wouldn't allow you to lower your head again. And my stubbornness kept me from seeking you out. The gap in our family backgrounds, our upbringing, our personalities, we were never meant to be together. People who meet in a crowd are eventually returned to the crowd. There aren't that many what-ifs in the world. After a long while, Hudson finally said, Victoria, you've become much more rational. Hudson gave a relieved smile. In that moment, I suddenly didn't dislike him anymore. Congratulations on your wedding, Victoria. Thank you. Hudson, a mountain bird and a fish walk different paths from now on. Our worlds will never meet again. Chapter 9. My wedding with Luis went extremely smoothly. I received many blessings. The wish I had as a child, to have a home, was finally fulfilled when I turned 30. Lying in bed, I suddenly remembered Hudson saying that Luis had approached me with long-planned intention. Luis acted helpless. I didn't expect he would still try to set me up even now. Luis told me that the first time he saw me was during the family inheritance meeting. Many people were full of malice toward me, and I stood among them like a little lamb dropped into a pack of wolves. When we left, it began to rain. I was standing under the eaves watching the rain, looking lonely. Just that one glance and Luis's heart moved. So he approached me under the excuse of asking whether I needed legal assistance, but I refused. I couldn't help laughing a little. Back then, I was only worried about how to get home in the rain. There was nothing lonely about it. Later, when he met me in Xinjiang, he felt it was fate. He pretended he had lost his documents on purpose so he could ask me for help. The beginning between Luis and me was something he had deliberately created. You fell for me that early, yet you waited 3 years. If I hadn't confronted you in Lijiang, how long were you planning to wait before confessing? I love you very much, so I was terrified. I was afraid you wouldn't like me. After all, you had once loved others so passionately. I wasn't sure I could make a place in your heart. When I met Luis, I was at the lowest point of my life. My relationship with David hadn't healed my emotional exhaustion, it only deepened my self-doubt. Around that time, my so-called mother passed away. I had never received even a shred of love from the person who should have loved me most in this world. I fell into deep self-questioning. If I hadn't met Luis, I don't dare imagine what kind of person I would be now. I'm grateful for your premeditated approach, I said. Luis kissed me. I should be the one thanking you for giving me the chance to walk into your heart. A friend once asked me why I ultimately chose Luis. Luis is not only the man I love, he is the right man. Even without the unexpected events, none of my first 3 relationships would have lasted. The proud Hudson, the weak Pablo, and the childish David. None of them could heal my unfortunate childhood or give me the life I wanted. Only Luis, gentle and strong Luis, could. Chapter 10, Hudson's Extra. Victoria returned home when she was 12. My family and hers had been close for generations. Amelia constantly complained about how manipulative Victoria and her mother were, calling them low-class and despicable. So from the beginning, I didn't like Victoria. But when I actually saw her, I realized she wasn't as hateful as Amelia made her sound. Victoria was too beautiful, soft and delicate, like a little dumpling. When she was bullied into tears, she would only cry silently. I began to pay attention to her without realizing it. When she was bullied, I would step forward to defend her a little. Brother, you're so kind. When Victoria looked up and spoke to me, I could even see the fine fuzz on her cheeks. Under the sunlight, she seemed to be glowing. When Victoria turned 17, she suddenly began pursuing me. I was so happy I didn't know what to do with myself. But my family didn't approve. I negotiated with them for 2 years and made many compromises before they finally agreed to let Victoria and me be together. After we started dating, Victoria became even cuter. I wished I could keep her by my side every single day. But why? Why did Victoria pursue me only to take revenge on Amelia? Did Victoria actually like me? Hudson at 20 was far too proud and he couldn't accept it. The day after the breakup, I regretted it deeply. But I couldn't swallow my pride and I didn't know how to apologize to Victoria. My family's business in the US ran into trouble and I was arranged to go there. It was my responsibility, I had to go. But what about Victoria? That night when I waited for her at Hongqiao Airport and she didn't show up, I hated her to death. I tried to go back to find her, but my parents dragged me onto the plane. At the moment the plane took off, I realized something had been lost forever. Sure enough, Victoria later started a second relationship in China. She began forgetting me. I couldn't allow that, so I threatened Pablo. Pablo was a coward. He quickly gave up on Victoria. Victoria was heartbroken, but I was secretly happy. Victoria had no one else around her again. Her second boyfriend didn't matter at all. He was just an immature brat. A few words from me and he broke up with Victoria. Fortunately, Victoria wasn't too sad this time. But unexpectedly another man appeared beside her, Luis. I knew Luis was extremely patient. From the photos sent from China, I saw the overwhelming love Luis had for Victoria. This time I panicked. I desperately wanted to return to China. But by the time I finished settling family business and flew back, Victoria had already married him. I was one step too late. Victoria loved Luis. The way she looked at him, with trust and dependence, I had never seen her look at me that way. I realized Victoria was truly happy now. I was completely removed from Victoria's life. I still unwillingly sought Victoria out, and then Luis came to find me. Luis had always been calm and composed since childhood. I had never seen him so furious. He and I ended up fighting, ignoring all dignity. Luis called me trash. He said I disgusted him and Victoria and that if I couldn't lower my pride back, then I shouldn't act deep and affectionate now. My so-called devotion only made Victoria feel repulsed. A proper ex should not destroy her happiness without restraint. If I had even a little respect left for her, then I should let go. When I saw Victoria for the last time at the bridal shop, she looked exactly as I had imagined she would in a wedding dress.